Struggling to decide between single or multi-organization setups in Datadog? This decision can make or break your observability strategy. Stick around to learn the pros, cons, best practices, and ensure no technical debt is built to maximize observability. Let's get started. First, let's review what an org is in Datadog and what is shared between them. Then let's highlight the main use cases for a single org approach and the ones for a multi-org approach. Third, we will review what an hybrid approach means and how to optimize for complex situations. Finally, let's end with some best practices to make your observability journey successful. In Datadog, an organization, also called org, is a central entity that groups and manages all the resources, users, and data associated with a specific account. It acts as a container for everything you do within Datadog, such as monitoring infrastructure, logging data, or setting up dashboards. You might be wondering what is actually shared between organizations in Datadog. Currently, the only shared information is Datadog usage data, which flows from child organizations to their parent. Everything else is kept separate. Note that things are changing and metrics can now flow to parent orgs, but by default, the data is isolated. This ensures full isolation, not just for collected data, but for users too. An admin in a parent org doesn't automatically have access to a child org. They'd need to be invited, just like any other user, or have created the child org themselves. While this safeguards security, it could limit observability gains when sharing a single source of truth is critical for success. That's why it is important to understand both approaches to optimize for success. Now that we've covered what an org is in Datadog, let's dive into why you might choose a multi-org setup. First, let's go through why a multi-org setup is truly necessary. The first reason is related to legal and compliance requirements. This is especially important in sectors like banking, insurance, and healthcare, where governments impose strict regulations to protect data and ensure users within the same company cannot access specific information. While some of these requirements can be addressed through proper roles and access strategies, a multi-org structure is often needed to ensure full compliance. The second reason also ties to legal considerations, specifically data governance. For example, regulations like GDPR may require certain data to be hosted within specific countries or regions, making a multi-org setup essential for adhering to such rules. However, one of Datadog's core strengths in the observability space is its ability to centralize information and provide a unified view across all stacks and teams. Over the years, the single organization approach has been the most recommended and proven structure for achieving this. As mentioned earlier, the unified view is a key advantage of using a single organization. With all teams and services visible on a single platform, it becomes much easier for any team to understand how their dependent services behave and how they impact internal users. This is ultimately the goal of observability. Going further, there's the added benefit of sharing resources and data. Teams can reuse dashboards and monitors created by others and incorporate them into their own dashboards to monitor dependencies. This not only reduces the initial setup time, but also enhances the overall quality of observability by building reusable, powerful components. Of course, like any tech solution, the community aspect is crucial. When everyone can see what's been set up, it enables collaborative support, whether during initial setup or troubleshooting major P0 outages. Finally, having everything centralized in a single organization makes Datadog support much simpler. It speeds up resolution times and makes troubleshooting more efficient. To summarize, a single organization setup is often the preferred and recommended choice for most companies. It offers a strong focus on observability, reliability, and performance. The gains observed in real-world use cases are also significantly higher. That said, a multi-organization approach does have its advantages, particularly when ownership and data segregation are legal requirements. This is commonly seen in highly regulated industries like banking or healthcare, or when service providers are managing Datadog on behalf of multiple companies. However, companies that have successfully reduced their number of organizations have maximized the benefits of a unified view. Another scenario where a multi-organization setup is used is during mergers and acquisitions, where the underlying tech systems haven't yet been fully integrated. In these cases, the multi-organization setup serves more as a transitional state than a permanent solution. To summarize, single org setups offer better visibility and ease of collaboration, but multi-org structures may be necessary for compliance and data isolation. Datadog understands that the ideal solution often lies somewhere in the middle. For large organizations, a single organization approach may not always be feasible. However, the purpose of this video is to strongly recommend a single organization setup wherever possible, even if the reality may sometimes require a balanced approach. That's why I'd like to share an example of a multi-organization approach. In this setup, you have a single parent account that gathers usage data from all other organizations. Under this parent account, multiple organizations can be created in each region. For instance, in my example, there's one region in the US and another in the EU, with 4 organizations total in each region. However, I want to emphasize again, whenever possible, aim to consolidate all users into the same organization. While it may sometimes be necessary to isolate specific projects or teams, the fewer child organizations you create, the greater the observability gains. If this video is already helping, give this video a like. A final note from my experience. The arguments for a multi-organization approach are often tangible and easy to grasp. However, while the benefits of a single organization approach may seem less obvious at first, they significantly outweigh those of a multi-org setup from an observability perspective. In my 5 years of experience with Datadog, I found that the most advanced companies in their observability journey consistently adopt structures closer to a single organization approach. Additionally, as technical account managers, we've regularly supported organizations transitioning from a multi-org setup to a single org structure, never the other way around. Comment below if you face challenges with multi-org setups in Datadog. Now that we've covered the theory behind organizational structures, let me share some recommendations to help you optimize both approaches. Let's assume you've chosen a multi-organization approach. I'll now share a few recommendations tailored to the scale of the multi-org structure you plan to implement. The first recommendation is to request a unique subdomain for each organization. This makes it easier for users to identify which organization they're working with and to share links seamlessly. It also helps Datadog support quickly identify the relevant organization when issues arise. One additional benefit is the ability to open 2 organizations in different browser tabs. While the data between them can't be directly correlated, you can visually compare them side by side. The second recommendation is to consider developing a management platform to oversee all sub-organizations. While not necessary and rarely done, it may have some benefits. For example, you might want to automate the deployment of new sub-organizations with predefined configurations and maintain those configurations in sync across all orgs. Sharing assets such as key dashboards and monitors is another important consideration. A common use case is deploying usage-based monitors across all organizations to alert relevant users when needed. Automation for managing a multi-org structure is often underestimated by central teams and can lead to delays in implementation due to the workload involved. A good rule of thumb is to avoid automating everything right away. Instead, start small and gradually introduce features that make maintenance easier over time. If you are looking for a shortcut, this is where Datadog provides you some tooling to get you started faster. Finally, my last recommendation is to create and nurture a community focused on observability. While this may be more challenging in a multi-org setup compared to a single org structure, the benefits of collaboration and shared learning are well worth the effort. Even though a single organization approach leads to better adoption of observability best practices and ultimately greater reliability, it does require some administrative effort to succeed. The first recommendation is to provide training on tagging and establish a strong tagging nomenclature. If possible, consider developing tools to identify untagged data and trace it back to its origin. Why is tagging so important? In a shared space, tagging is the primary way to identify assets and data. It also facilitates ownership. For example, if you find a useful dashboard on Redis for your new app, tagging helps you identify and reach out to the team responsible for it to get more information. The second recommendation is to master the usage attribution features of the platform. In a shared organization, costs are aggregated from Datadog's perspective. However, with proper tagging, you can allocate those costs to specific teams, departments, or projects, making billing more transparent and manageable. The third recommendation is to foster a community and encourage the use of shared dashboards. The ultimate goal is to reduce troubleshooting time, and having visibility into what the teams responsible for your dependent services care about is critical. Additionally, you can incorporate some of their metrics and SLOs into your dashboards, enabling faster root cause analysis. We've explored single org versus multi-org setups, hybrid solutions, and shared actionable tips to optimize your structure. Now it's time for you to take action. Streamline your observability, reduce costs, and improve team collaboration with these insights. For more expert tips on Datadog and observability, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share it with your team. Let's make observability a breeze.